In Soviet Russia, card gets you in Spotlight Cache Roulette. Find out what's going on as I hereby summon all my imps to join me on my adventures through Marvel Snap. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. So we got a brand new card this week, and that card happens to be Red Guardian. Red Guardian started out as one of the Soviet Union's most acclaimed test pilots. It was because of his extraordinary skills that he was chosen for one of the most secret and dangerous experiments by the KGB. He was trained to become the Soviet Union's counterpart to Captain America. During his years of training, he was conditioned to become a very cruel and ruthless soldier. Red Guardian was unhappy following the dissolution of the Soviet Union. He was no longer needed to operate in any combat missions, so he was stripped of these powers and was ordered to become a sleeper agent in the United States. He was assigned to live with 3 people who would act as his family. This was a begrudgingly accepted mission for the greatest warrior of Russia. Red Guardian one day obtained a file that he was assigned to set fire to the secret base that belonged to S.H.I.E.L.D. However, he had grown to love his new fake family and wanted nothing to happen to it. He made a decision and disobeyed the motherland. He whisked away everybody that night in a small plane to parts unknown, where he now lives as a regular life lest he be found out. Red Guardian, above anything else, possesses a strong sense of patriotism and national pride towards the Soviet Union. He is a kind, jovial, and overall good man and loving father, albeit with several flaws that hinder him, such as an attention-seeking behavior, his longing for fame and glory, him making up improbable war stories, and the fact that he can hold a grudge. Red Guardian was subject to the Soviet Union's recreation of the super soldier syndrome, which granted him abilities that enhance his physical parameters to superhuman levels. He is capable of superhuman feats such as enhanced strength, durability, agility, stamina, and reflexes. He also has a regenerative healing factor, and as a soldier, he is highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat. Being the Soviet Union's Captain America, he also has a shield that he is quite good at using, to the point that he is almost on par with Captain America's skills. Red Guardian was once the golden child of the USSR, but he was stripped of his power after they fell, and he became a sleeper agent. This is represented in Marvel Snap, as when he shows up, a card on your opponent's side will lose some, if not all, of their powers, and must now be silent about what they can do. In Marvel Snap, he is a 3-cost, 3-power, with the description of on reveal affect the lowest power enemy card with -2 power and remove its text. In my opinion, he is pretty much the definition of a 3-star card. And we're going to go over some of the things that he's good in, some of the things that he's bad in, why I think he falls right into the middle of a 3-star card. So if you were to look at this card just from a power stat way, it's as good, if not better, than a Gambit, depending on how you run your deck. Gambit is a 3/3 that has an on reveal that most times gets rid of 1 card. Sometimes it gets rid of 2 cards, and usually with this card you're trying to discard something you don't care about. But sometimes you don't have anything good to discard that you care about, so you'll just play the Gambit and just throw away something unimportant. This basically is a 3/3 that gets rid of, for all intents and purposes, one card, but doesn't have you discard anything for it or lose anything because of it. There are some low-cost cards. Now remember, it's the low-cost cards that matter. Like a 1/1 is what it's going to hit. So there are some really early game things that usually are in a lane by themselves, or really don't have much else in a lane to them, that can really get affected by this, like Nebula. Or like a Quinjet, where you lose that ongoing power. And what's more important about this is it even works on cards like Angela. Even though Angela doesn't have an ongoing effect or an on-reveal effect, she is what's commonly referred to as a static effect. This will still affect and silence the Angela. So if this hits the Angela and nothing else is there, or nothing smaller than her is there, it'll become a 2, -2 at that point, and not be able to gain any more power after that point. That's a big hit for it. Also nice to get rid of stuff like Goose. If you're tired of seeing Goose around, play this down. It'll take out the Goose, make it silent. Usually you don't have anything bigger than Goose. That's smaller than Goose, I should say, in the lane that Goose is in. Another good thing for Collector, but you have to be careful of Collector, because Collector a lot of times will be sitting in a lane with something else, and if Collector's higher than whatever else is in this lane, like let's say Collector's with an armor, if Collector gets above 4, it'll hit the armor, not the Collector. I'm not sure how it works with Green Goblin. As far as I've read, it should work with Green Goblin. I don't see why it wouldn't work with Green Goblin. I just don't have the card, so I haven't tested it. It might be good for a little bit of a junk deck, where you toss over something like the Green Goblin and then play Red Guardian on the same lane as the Green Goblin to bring it down to a 3 -5. And then even if your opponent has an Odin, they can't give you back the Green Goblin because it's silenced at that point. Also, don't know how it works with Brood or when it happens with a tie. In theory, it should pick one of the cards and silence them. The way it's written, it doesn't say one or the other. I wish I had a little bit more clarity on that. I don't have time to test these. I go into these blind. So, if it does work on just one of the Broods, that's fine. If it works on all 3 of the Broods, then it's ridiculous. Because then you can really throw it into a lane where 2 things have the same power and make, like, Silver Surfer cry. It's a big hit for Dracula. You ever been tired of Dracula? Like, how do I take care of Dracula? I can't do anything with Dracula. They have the Apocalypse. I know I'm going to lose to Dracula. Play this in the Dracula line. Dracula's usually alone. Or even if it has an armor in it, Dracula's below armor. Silence the Dracula, make them cry. Another good card for this, which happens in a lot of decks, is a Wong. You play this onto a Wong, make the Wong go down to a 4 -2. Sorry, to a 4/0, because it just loses 2 power. And then having the ability to lose the power, that's going to hurt a lot of decks. Iron Man shows up. This will eat an Iron Man's lunch. And sometimes, if you're really lucky or you really know where somebody's going to play something, they'll play null until a lane by itself. If this reveals after the null, which usually happens because they have prio, you make the null go from a 620 per se, all the way down to a 6 -2, making them going from winning that lane down to losing that lane. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here, and there's some questions I gotta get with the Brood. I'm not sure how it works with ties. My theory is it'll pick one of them. If it picks more than one of them, that's huge. and how it works with Green Goblin. Now, theoretically, it should work with Green Goblin, which could be nice for a toxic deck. I don't think anybody's talked about stuff like Green Goblin and Hobgoblin and even the Hood. So, might be some interesting stuff in there. With the rest of what we have this week, besides the Red Guardian, we also have the High Evolutionary. If you don't have High Evolutionary, if you didn't get High Evolutionary the day it came out, because this is back when we used to think that we had big bads, and people saved up their 6,000 tokens just to get the High Evolutionary, go get High Evolutionary. Go spend on High Evolutionary. You might not even care about the Red Guardian as much as you care about the High Evolutionary, especially if you're a newer player, because the High Evolutionary deck is basically a deck in itself for a newer player. If you don't have a lot of stuff that's 4s and 5s, just put High Evolutionary in there, and you've got 6 cards that are now great cards for you. Because you don't have the Wasp, of course. You get the Wasp down the road, or you might not have the Wasp. Lady Deathstrike. Such an interesting one, such a weird one. It's not great, it's not bad. With the way they changed this after the newest nerf/buff, it now has more power, but it has basically a throttle on it, since it can't kill anything with 4 or more power. And there's a lot of things that have 4 or more power. Now, in the future, they may adjust Lady Deathstrike, but right now, that 3 or less is being a really restrictive ruling on this. I could see in the future them moving this up to like 4. I could really see this moving up to 4 or less. And if it got 4 or less somewhere in the future, Lady Deathstrike becomes more powerful than you think she does. Since it happens on both sides. But right now, Lady Deathstrike, not the greatest card. Right. So for this week, you're basically hoping to get the High Evolutionary. If you have the High Evolutionary, I might skip this week. If you don't have the High Evolutionary is what you care about. I will still roll for this week because I do this for the content. So let's find out what's in the box. What's in the box? Let's all find what's in the box. Box says High Evolutionary. Nice. Alright, so this weekend on Friday, I'll be playing a High Evolutionary deck with all 7 High Evolutionary cards in it, and just making some fun out of it. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, remember, play for fun.